Welcome back, everybody. So today, let's start with a new thing I'm going to do called Retro Roundup, which will also coincide with my Theater Run Roundup, where with Theater Run Roundup, I'm doing all my videos for movies that I see in the theater weekly all together. And then I'm going to do Retro Roundup for this video, which is all these older movies that I finally get to see, but I don't want to make each video on. I feel like I could just do it all in one video. So today we're going to be talking about 5 films. So let's start out with my first film, which is The Blob from 1988, directed by Chuck Russell of Nightmare on Elm Street 3 fame. And this one I bought a while ago on Scream Factory, and they released the Blu-ray for it. And I was really excited because, again, Chuck Russell, it had Shawnee Smith. I heard the effects are great. Tony Gardner did the effects. And I was really excited to watch this movie. And watching it, honestly, this was an awesome movie. I thought that this was way more entertaining than I expected. Whenever I saw the title The Blob whenever I was a kid, I never watched it because I kind of thought it looked lame. But watching the movie, I really, really liked it a lot. And I haven't seen the original yet, but that's definitely one that I will now watch because I enjoyed this one so much. There are so many good scenes with the practical effects in this movie where this blob will like take over a location where a character is isolated in, and then you see from the point of view of the character inside. Like there's a scene in a phone booth where a character is literally in the phone booth and the blob is literally covering every part of the phone booth, and you just see the view of the person inside of it before the person gets squished. And that is just such great effective practical work in this movie, and I really think it holds up still. And watching this in 2019 it's really fantastic still. And there's some great scenes that happen in a movie theater, which with the blob there, and it really is effective. And again, the way they use the blob in this movie, it works very, very well. And then there's like a scene where like this kid is stuck on a door like in the theater, and like he's really close to getting got by the blob, and I really think that's awesome as well. Again, this movie does a great job of building up so much tension, and I just think it does a great entertaining job for that. And this is one that I just don't hear a lot of praise, and I'm glad that I finally got to see it and say that it is awesome. And also, it's got a younger Shawnee Smith in it, who would eventually go on to do the Saw films in terms of another horror franchise. So that's awesome seeing a younger version of her here as this character Meg. And she is awesome, and at the end of the movie, she's really awesome. I really love her at the end, and I like her throughout, but at the end of the movie, she's really great. But The Blob 1988 was really an awesome surprise, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we have Robert Englund's Phantom of the Opera from 1989, where Robert Englund plays the titular Phantom of the Opera, directed by Dwight H. Little, who directed Halloween 4 1 year prior. So I was excited for this movie because, again, like the poster art for this movie alone made me go, "Oh, this looks fun." And it looks more fun than a typical Phantom of the Opera movie, because Phantom of the Opera is a franchise where I've seen 2 movies, I think, so far of them, where I've seen the 1943 Universal Monster movie one, and then I've seen the 2004 Gerard Butler one, but that's all I've seen of this franchise. And going into this, I was like, maybe this will be a little more fun since it seems like it's a slasher, and it's really not. It's not much of that. I expected it to be more of that because of the poster art, because of showing Robert Englund looking like Freddy. They really made some deceiving poster art for this movie, which doesn't make me mad. It just made me go, okay, I understand where they're coming from this standpoint, because probably there were a million Phantom of the Opera movies already during this time, so I bet they wanted to do something different. And this movie, I guess, is different from the other Phantom of the Operas I've seen, where like it's the character Christine, like the girl, where at the beginning she's in present time, which is different than the other Phantom of the Operas. But like she goes into the past for the most of the movie, where Robert Englund as the Phantom appears. So I guess that's different than the other Phantom movies I've seen, because the other Phantom movies are like set early not in modern time in 1989 in this film. So that's a positive, I guess. But this one just didn't do much for me. Like I thought it, like everything about it I thought was just perfectly serviceable, but I never thought that this movie was super entertaining or super interesting to watch. I thought that this one was a little boring, but I did like like I did like that the movie is different, but it's just not a movie that I'm gonna remember really. And I bought it on Scream Factory, so I probably will see it again, but I just don't really feel like on my first viewing that this movie is very memorable to me personally. I know it has its fans, but for me personally, I feel like it's not. But again, like I said, it's great for any movie to have its fans, and I know this one does. So if you like it, that's awesome. For me, I just thought it was perfectly okay. Road Games, which is a Richard Franklin directed movie, which is really cool because this also stars Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis, where it's this driver who encounters Jamie Lee Curtis's character, who's a hitchhiker, while this guy is going around killing people, killing girls on the road. So Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis's character go and they kind of form a bond while the killer is on the loose and like playing cat and mouse with Stacy Keach's character. So I thought that the basic premise on that I thought was interesting. And Richard Franklin is a great director, so I really was excited to watch this movie. And watching it, this one again fell into the category of it's perfectly serviceable. Like it's not bad, but it's not very super entertaining or interesting. Like it's one of those movies where it's kind of like it's a cool premise, like having a cat and mouse game out in the on the road. Like I think that's really cool. I like that, even though it's been done in other movies. But I think that it's kind of just done so basically. I guess like there's not much really for me to say about this movie. Like I like the performances, fine. Like Stacy Keach is good, Jamie Lee Curtis is good. Like they're both good in their performances, but they don't have a lot really to do. Like it's weird. It's one of those movies where it's just I don't know. I expected more of it to be more interesting or more thrilling. And I like slow burn movies, but I felt like this one just didn't really it kind of missed the mark for me in a way. Like I just didn't really care throughout the movie, even though I did like the performances, I did like the idea. But this one was just one of those movies where it was just fine. Like the real reason I watched this is because Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and also it is the last of the six movies, the six horror movies that she did, starting with Halloween 1978 up to Halloween 2 in 1981. She did six horror movies, and this was the only one that I needed to see out of those six that she did in that run. So I was really interested to see this movie. And I did overall think it was just fine, but it's not one again that's very memorable. Like it's okay. Like it's not super interesting throughout. It's not bad. It's just a little lackluster overall. Like that's really all I could say about it. It's just a lackluster movie. Like it's fine. It's got good things about it, but overall, again, like Phantom of the Opera, it's just kind of lackluster. Now let's talk about a movie that's really, really not lackluster, but is also lackluster, in which this movie called Nothing But Trouble, a 1991 movie directed by Dan Aykroyd, the only movie directed by Dan Aykroyd, starring Dan Aykroyd as a couple people, Chevy Chase, Demi Moore, and John Candy, which you would think with all of those people involved, like this movie would be awesome. And I'm not gonna lie, this movie is a little awesome in just how unabashedly weird it is. This is a odd movie. Like this is one of the strangest Hollywood movies I have seen. Like it is so weird. The basic plot of this, if I could give a short description, is that Chevy Chase and Demi Moore meet up at a hotel and like they like each other. Then these two obnoxious friends go with them and they're going on a trip. I forgot where they're going, but they're going on a trip and they encounter this backwoods area where they find Dan Aykroyd's character, who's this deformed judge who has this mansion where there's like dead bodies everywhere, like dead skeletons, and like they're trying to get out of this while Dan Aykroyd is just acting crazy. And like it's really weird because it's like it's a comedy that mixes a lot of horror, but it just has so much random shit in it. Like, it mixes a lot of horror. Like, for example, the mansion kind of reminds me of like something like out of Psycho, and also Texas Chainsaw Massacre with all the bodies they found like all around. Like, it's insanely weird. And then I don't know what his name is, but rapper of 1991, whoever that is, raps at the end of the movie, and it's so odd and so jarring. It's very, very strange, and I just looked at it, like, watching it, I was just kind of flabbergasted in how, because Dan Aykroyd was a big person at this time period, and I think that they thought, okay, we can just let him do what he wants, and honestly, I'm fine with that because this movie is not forgettable because it is just so insanely wacky. I know people say it's not good, and I completely see why it's not good. It is so strange. There are a lot of jokes that I don't really think are funny. I don't think this movie is very funny. I think it's just a fascinating movie in how weird it is. Especially the jokes. It's like it's weird jokes that are kind of just ad-libbed and they're random, where like there's a scene where Dan Aykroyd's character, the deformed judge in this mansion, like he's got like everybody else like at a table, and he says, like, he hands out some like big jugs of Kool-Aid, and says there's nothing like a long day, there's nothing like after a long day drinking some Hawaiian punch. And I just sat there like, what? Okay, that's a weird line to go on. Like, okay. And then like they're eating, and the table, part of the table goes down and comes back up, and then it's just a train set, like running around, and everybody's just watching the train. Like, it is just, it's so random. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I do kind of commend him for being so odd and so bizarre. Like, it is just a bizarre ass movie. Um, and there are moments where like Dan Aykroyd is kind of funny because he'll be saying something normal, and then he'll randomly say like just randomly start dancing or start singing, and it's funny because it's just so out there and so random. Like, that's why I think it's funny, but it doesn't make any damn sense at all. But this movie just really was so odd and so strange. I didn't understand like what even happened in the movie. Like, I sat there like I didn't get it. But there were a couple moments where I did actually laugh, but it was more like the silly shit, like not like the lines people said, because Dan Aykroyd's the only one who seems like he's having a lot of fun. And I read online that Chevy Chase only did it because he was such good friends with Dan Aykroyd, but he didn't like what the movie was. And Demi Moore, I think, was just became famous because of Ghost a year before, so I don't know. Ghost probably was her biggest movie right then, I think, but I think that she is fine too, but she just, again, like Chevy Chase, they're kind of like just looking at things like they don't understand what's going on either. And John Candy too, but he's not in the movie as much, so it's just very strange. It's a very odd, random movie that I did enjoy for its unabashedness of being so strange. It is an odd ass movie, but I think like it, if that makes sense. Even though I made points of things that I didn't like, but I still like the uniqueness of it, even though it doesn't make sense and isn't good, if that makes sense. So yeah, this one was a very odd one. I'm glad I saw it because a lot of people say it's great. Like, there's somebody, if you guys know who Christian Hannah Horror is, he said it's like one of his favorite So Bad It's Good movies, and I could see that in a way. I personally didn't feel that way, but I could see why people would think that, and I do think that this movie does have a cult following. So I did want to see it just to see what people were saying about it, and even though I didn't love it, I thought it was an interesting movie to watch and just be open-mouthed at because it was just so weird. Then the last movie we're going to talk about today is Peter Jackson's Meet the Feebles, which I watched on YouTube for free because it's not owned by a major company, I guess. And I also watched Bad Taste and Dead Alive a couple months ago on YouTube because they're free on there too, because again, they're not owned by any, like, I guess, US company. But again, directed by Peter Jackson. This movie, I didn't know what to expect going into this. I knew it was about puppets, and I knew it was vulgar and gross, and that's all I knew about the movie. And I like that Meet the Feebles starts out all happy and wholesome. Like it just seems very happy and very kind and just a weird like they're singing and dancing. And then it shows the behind the scenes of these puppets after they're doing their happy show. And this movie I think is fascinating in how it's fascinating too in how weird it is. Like I did enjoy this one. I did like that this movie just basically said to everybody like we're going to be as nasty as we can be. Like there's a lot of like weird stuff in this movie. Like there's puppet sex, puppet rape, watching puppet porn, there's puppets doing drugs, puppets like shooting each other up. Like it is just I do like that Peter Jackson was like, I'm gonna make this and make it just as vulgar and grotesque as I can do with this low budget. Because again, like Meet the Feebles or Bad Taste, it was an incredibly low budget. Because a lot of the puppets are literally just people in puppet outfits, you can tell. But also, there's some other weird, funny stuff. Like there is a full-size fly eating shit out of a toilet, like getting a spoon and just like putting it into a spoon and then eating it, and it is disgusting. But I commend him just by doing this weird stuff. It made this movie memorable. I did like this one, and I really thought that it was just so insane with all the weird, gross stuff that they did, and like there's even like I said, there's a shootout at the end where like all these puppets get shot up. And there's a song of sodomy while there's a massacre, and it's just so insane. Like it blows me away and how this was just so odd. I did enjoy this movie and just how insane it was. Like this one was entertaining. I did like it. I do want to see it again in a better quality because the YouTube quality that I watched was worse than like a VHS tape quality. So I do want to see this, and if they release it in 4K like Peter Jackson, I guess, is gonna do. I hope he does. Then I'll definitely get it because I do want to see it in 4K, or just regular Blu-ray. I do want to see all his other older films in higher definition because all the transfers I've seen are YouTube transfers that are worse than VHS transfers. So yeah, Meet the Feebles I thought was really entertaining and really fun. It was very odd and out there. Like it's a movie that's not for everybody. If you don't want to see any gross stuff, it's not for you. But if you do want to just see weird shit, like that's what this movie is. It's weird. It's gross. It's unforgettable in that way. I enjoyed Meet the Feebles. This one was pretty fun. So that is my retro roundup for this week, and that is all I have for you guys this week. And tell me down below what you guys think of these movies, and thank you guys so much for watching.